most people don't take stock of their lives when everything's going great.
Nobody goes on the internet like, hey, just want to let everybody know things are fine today.
It doesn't happen.
Woke up, I just had some breakfast. It's good.
I wonder if that person does. Everybody thinks that guy's a dick.
Yeah.
Like, quit bragging. Nobody cares about your amazing life, Steve.
Butterscotch.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 85 of Coffee with Butterscotch, the game dev comedy podcast of Butterscotch Shenanigans. I'm Seth, and I'm the games programmer.
I'm Adam, and I'm the node swarmer.
Node swarmer?
Yeah, man.
He's the note swarmer. What are you going to do?
I'm Sam.
And today is February 7th, 2017. Before we get started, we have a warning. Anything can happen on this show. There will be profanity. There's going to be all kinds of other crap, too. So if you don't like hearing about things, then just get out.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys. Big week.
Yeah.
Last week, we invented time.
We did.
It didn't exist, and then we invented it. So let's talk about that.
I honestly have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah. Now, Adam took a week off last week, as our listeners may recall.
There were many things that happened while I was gone, and apparently one of those things was the invention of time.
Yeah, and while Adam was gone, Sam and I were working on the next game.
Well, it's actually that we felt so lost that we needed to figure out a way to somehow mark the duration that Adam was gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we came up with
We
this
invented
concept.
this thing called time. And the way that, all right, so here's what really happened is we were working on the next game, and we're working on a farming system.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going down our checklist. Okay, you got to be able to buy seeds. All right, done. Buy seeds. Okay, now you have the seeds. Now you got to be able to
Put them in the dirt.
the seed in the dirt. Okay, we'll put the seed in the dirt. And then the next thing on the checklist is, okay, the seeds have to grow. And Sam and I looked at each other and we're like, how the fuck do seeds grow? And so we started having the conversation about, we wanted it to be the case that we could convey that these seeds are growing over a matter of days, but we didn't want it to be the case that it took actual days for the seeds to grow. So we're like, this is confusing, because if we say it takes 10 days,
But those aren't human
but they're not
days.
real, actual normal days, then we have a problem. So obviously we need to just come up with a new type of time
Mm-hmm.
that sort of is a stand-in for the passage of time on planet Wonope.
Mm-hmm.
So here's where we landed. All right. So one day on Wonope is called a spin. A spin lasts for 20 Earth minutes. Okay.
So that's a full day-night cycle.
That's a
with
full day-
sunsets.
Wait, is this
Sunrises.
supposed to be sort of like a metaphorical time system, or is this actually what
This is
time
actual
like on
time.
Wonope?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So a rad
This is
dadish.
conveniently a lot like what a game world would be like.
Yes. It's very convenient.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So a rad dadish, for example, may take,
Wait, is this a plant?
it's a plant.
Okay.
So that may take, 10 spins to grow.
Okay.
Okay.
Sure.
So then a month on Wonope is called an arc.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
And an arc takes 72 spins or 1 Earth day.
Okay.
Okay.
Got it. Sure.
There are 21 arcs in a rev, which is a rev is a Wonope year, which lasts
Sure.
for 3 Earth weeks.
Okay. Got it.
Okay. So 1 year on Wonope is broken up into 3 general sort of phases, each of which is 1 week long on Earth. And the arcs are named after the phases.
Hmm.
So, for example, the first 7 arcs of a rev, they all end in Bawguary. Okay.
January, February, etc.
So for example, this upcoming Sunday is going to be Unuary. Okay.
Not just one Uary.
No, Unuary.
Unuary.
Then next Monday will be Wikuary, and then Bawguary,
Sure.
and then Miduary, then Marluary, then Duskuary, then Finuary.
Which is the final arc
Yeah. Okay.
of that cycle.
So this is obvious, right?
Yeah.
And then
Very predictable.
So it's just a matrix. So what we do is that first week of our time, those first 7 arcs all have a particular prefix according to which one they are in succession. So number 1, number 5, whatever, and then all have a particular suffix depending on which week it is.
yeah. So that means so right now today is Bawgember, because the third set of arcs ends in ember, right? So tomorrow's going to be mid-ember because this will be a Wednesday,
Sure.
So it all makes perfect sense.
The best part about this is so a spin is 20 minutes. And it just so happens, we listened to the song Fuck Everything by John LaJoie. And he talks about one of the lyrics is an hour is too long. It should be half an hour at most.
Yep.
And we kind of agreed with this. And then now that we've made our own time.
Now we can say, I'll be back in 2 spins.
Yeah.
Which is about 40 minutes,
Yeah. So saying, I think it'll take me about a spin or so. Seth and I have started communicating in this time.
Yeah, so a quarter
in the
spin
office.
is 5 minutes.
Yeah.
A half spin is 10 minutes. A spin is 20 minutes. Yeah.
Maybe we should call it a lickety splin.
Yeah.
Lickety
Spin.
Lickety spin.
So we a lot of last
1
week was
minute.
spent sort of
What about a
coming up.
spin it?
Spin it.
Ooh, yeah.
What I don't know what
That's
that would be.
that would
1/20th
be-
of a spin.
Is a fifth of it, or 5% of a spin, 1 minute. Yeah. So we invented this, and now we've gone back, and then we added the day-night cycle to the game, and there's a calendar, and the calendar is based on real time. Because like we talked about earlier in the podcast, we want it to be the case that, if it rains in my game, it rains in everybody's game. If it's winter in my game, it's winter in everybody's game. And so we actually needed a universal time system that was based on a standardized clock. So it's not going to be the case that, for example, like when you play Crashlands, if it's 8 a.m. in your game, who knows what time or day it is in somebody else's game, because you have totally separate things.
What rev does everything? Like what rev is it?
Right now it's Rev 1.
Because time just started.
Shouldn't time started like a long time ago
Nah.
in the
No.
game world though?
Well, the idea here is that by the time we finish the game, who knows what Rev it's going to be. So, because time continues
But I mean,
to pass.
yeah. But if we're looking back, if the whole idea is like we're starting off at some point in
It might be like an AD
history.
sort of situation because this is post the events of Crashland.
Yeah, we might
I
just
see.
go ahead and just like add 1,000 to the
So
revs.
somehow
Yeah.
Crashlands has such a dramatic impact on everything. that Everyone's like, let's just reset.
It's sort of like after
yeah.
Hugo,
So PH post Hugo.
Post Hugo,
Post-Hugo.
yeah, or AH. So we invented time.
This reminds me of that old saying: if you want to make an omelet, you have to invent time.
You have to invent the concept of time,
Yeah.
Yeah.
because otherwise, how long are you going to cook it? You know?
Yeah.
So,
How would you know?
so then we also added these moons that are cycling around the planet, and there are 4 moons, and each moon has its own unique orbital time. And depending on what moon is at the peak, you will experience different types of night. So there's a black moon that when that thing is at the top, then the night is pitch black for that night.
Because it's like a
It's like a disc.
Super-
it's, like it's blocking out. It's
like
so
light
dark.
absorbing.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like a black hole, but a moon.
Sure.
And so
Is
you've
it
got
just
that. You've
actually a
got like,
black hole?
like
Could
a
be a
red
black hole.
moon.
Just like a real little one.
Yeah.
They have to be really little.
So we have all these different moons, and then what we want to do is when the moons line up, then interesting things happen. And we did the math on it, and any 2 moons based on their orbits, any 2 moons will line up once, between every like 50 to 150 spins. So every couple of days. Any 3 moons will line up, every few weeks to couple months. But for all 4 moons to line up at the same time, it'll take like 4.2 years.
Yeah.
And since night only lasts for 5 minutes, we got to have something really special because that means like 4 years from now, all 4 moons will line up and it won't happen again for another 4 years.
Something crazy's got to
So
happen.
something crazy is going to happen. We don't know what, but it's going to be super cool.
Yeah. We'll definitely have to have that event check with the server to make sure it actually is that time because somebody
Yes.
set their clock to it.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll have regular server check-ins to
Yeah.
keep those hackers out.
Mhm.
So we
Time
invented
hacker.
time, which was super cool. And we also, and as far as like the day-night cycle goes, we swiped the lighting system from Crashlands and then re-engineered it so that it can now handle things like sunsets and sunrises. So when the sun rises now, it's kind of got the world has kind of a reddish glow to it. And we bring in different light channels and pull other light channels out or color channels, depending on time of day. And so we have all this cool stuff happening.
We've also been fiddling around with just a little bit of bloom too. Because again, we're trying to just add a few more layers and take up the overall visual quality. And having a few of these sort of screen wide shaders is something that's going to be hard or impossible to pull off on mobile because of a lack of GPU. But we're not just a mobile studio anymore. So we're looking at other ways to fancy up what these things look like and have them be toggleable so you can slap them on and off and make things look really pretty.
Yeah. We'll see how it goes.
Who knows?
I don't know how well bloom goes on a 2D black outline vector art,
Look pretty nice. the
but
other
we're
day.
we're just gonna make it go. And
Yeah,
we
what's
also
it
have
mean?
some really exciting news,
Yeah.
which is our new artist has arrived.
Tifa.
Tifa.
Mm-hmm.
So today's as of the podcast right now, today's her second day. And we just threw her into the deep end and got her all hooked up with all the different, accounts she has to know how to use and programs she may have never seen before. And she's using a mouse to do art, which is Sam's style. And anytime we talk to artists, they're always like, why? How could you do this?
Now they've got that vertical mouse going on. Everyone's like, what?
It's extra hilarious.
Yeah, so Sam's using a vertical mouse. And so, but I mean, to Tifa's credit, she came in and she was like, you use a mouse to do this? I'm going to use a mouse to do this.
I didn't tell her to. I was just like, okay.
She just owned it. She took ownership of this.
Yeah, so she's been crushing it. She actually made another character class for the next game already yesterday. So getting all that stuff put in.
Wait, that thing's a character class?
Yeah.
Yeah.
To play as it.
It's a shaloke.
We'll keep it on wraps.
Oh.
Some of you
will know.
Some very small few of you will know what that is.
What a shaloke is?
Yeah.
Do you remember how we came up with the name of shaloke?
Because I tried to type clamshell. I think I tried to type clamshell, and my hands were like off by a key on the keyboard.
And somehow he just typed some weird ass thing. It kind of looked like shaloke. And we're like, whatever. That's what it is.
It's a shaloke.
But yeah, so it's super exciting. We'll be bringing her onto the podcast sometime in the next couple of weeks once she gets all settled in and everything else. So
yeah. So if you have questions for Tifa,
start stacking them up.
Start piling up, and we'll stockpile them, and then we'll fling them her way when if she wants to be on the podcast, which is it's her prerogative.
It's a personal decision.
Yeah. And we also played D&D last night.
Oh yeah, so Sure did a campaign and got everything rocking and rolling for us. And I think the thing is we've talked about doing a D&D campaign for a long time, but none of us want to put in the 2 days of learning about how to be a DM.
Yeah, but fortunately, but sort of also unfortunately, Sure's back exploded on Friday.
Yeah,
we were lifting and he was doing leg press. And he was fine throughout. And then over time, and I've experienced this as well, when you sort of strain something in your back over time, over the next hour or so, his back just hurt increasingly more and more. So he's kind of strained a muscle. And so he was kind of hobbling around with all hunched over on Friday. And so he was like, well, if I'm going to not be able to move all weekend, I might as well just research and make a D&D campaign. So Sure took the initiative to be our dungeon master.
He rolled for initiative to be our dungeon master.
He did. He rolled a natural 20.
Well, let's just talk about this because I used to think the D&D was just the nerdiest thing. I mean, it is, but in a bad way, I guess. Way back when.
I don't think I ever thought it was bad. I just literally didn't.
I didn't understand
what it was.
Right? Because it's we've talked about it a little bit before, but so the whole idea is it's just a set of rules that allow you to tell stories that people get to interact with.
And basically all about modern video game RPGs comes from D&D.
Yeah.
Rules wise.
I mean, especially if you're looking through the spells list and then you go play World of Warcraft or something, you're like, you guys took all of these. Yeah.
It's like it should be illegal.
Yeah, I played a monk in World of Warcraft, and I was playing a monk in D&D last night. I was like, hey, this feels exactly the same.
Well, so we decided to actually do a little bit of, it's more fun if people actually role play during it by throwing on different voices and stuff.
Yeah.
So Andy's character has a really thick Scottish accent and just yells,
just cursing constantly,
yells and swears constantly. He also got both of his lungs punctured yesterday and was shooting blood out like a fountain.
He just used it as a chance to obtain projectiles.
Yeah.
In the form of blood.
There's always a silver lining when you get stabbed in both lungs, as they say.
But I think the funniest thing that happened yesterday was that Seth is playing as Tibbly Bing Bong.
Tibbly Binglebong.
Binglebong.
I'm a gnome monk.
And Adam, who is a lizard person.
Lizard folk.
Lizard folk. Named,
lizard folk fighter.
Whoop-a-doop. Whoop-a-doop-boop.
Wadoop-a-doop.
Wadoop-a-doop. So Seth and Adam chase a goblin into the bushes.
Well, first we had an epic showdown where we just there was a huge goblin called a hobgoblin that was like the boss of this encounter.
So Seth ran up to it,
and there were 6 of us playing, and so four of our team went to take on the smaller goblins, and Adam and I were like, we're gonna go to the big one, and we just flattened him just right out of the gate.
Well, Seth punched him in the knee super hard.
I shattered his knee.
He punched him in one knee, and he was just like, I don't even care, I'm wearing armor. Then he punched him even harder in the other knee, and then he fell to the ground.
And then Adam came over and just straight up decapitated him.
Right.
So that was over real quick.
A natural 20. Yeah.
So it seemed like this unstoppable duo, this other goblin.
Good old Tibbly Bingle Bong and Wadoopadoo.
Yeah, so this other goblin shoots Adam in the shoulder from the forest, like out of nowhere. What?
But only barely.
Only barely.
It just barely went
little.
completely through Adam's shoulder.
And so Adam and Seth go running off into the woods to go teach this goblin what's up. And none of us can see what's going on in there. Of course, we know because we're playing D&D.
So your character doesn't know.
Basically, what happened was over the course, it was like 4 whole rounds?
4 entire combat rounds. So each round, in theory, each round lasts for 6 seconds in combat. So if you imagine like for 24 straight seconds of the fight.
So Adam and Seth so in other words, 8 total turns between the two of them, trying to attack this goblin.
Well, between the 3 of us, because he was trying to attack us.
He was trying to attack us, and even better, Adam and I were both dual wielding, which meant we got to attack twice each.
Right. And believe it or not, no one hit anything.
The goblin never hit us. We never hit it.
This is 16 attempts at stabbing this goblin, plus 4 more attempts from the goblin trying to stab it. So
out of 20 attacks in this bush, we all just came out completely.
They were just cutting down trees basically, and then I think my favorite one was Adam's getting a little fed up with it, and he's like, "All right, I'm just gonna point my dagger at him and just slowly just poke him with it. Like I'm just gonna slowly put it in so I can't miss."
And then I rolled a 2.
You rolled a 2. so Adam was like, and I just turned it over there, just turned it away. And then we're all adopting voices and stuff, and so my story is my character's a halfling bard named Butterscotch. And Butterscotch used to have a super sexy radio voice that he used to entertain people with.
To bard with.
And he was doing a spirit-assisted ventriloquism one day, and the spirit was mischievous and ran off with his voice and replaced it with this just terrible screeching high-pitched voice. So Butterscotch comes in, he's like, "What are you guys doing in the woods?" And so we had this whole thing go down where Seth and Adam are in the woods basically slap fighting with this goblin. And then the goblin finally gives up because
all of his friends died because the rest of our party did all the other fighting while Adam and I were just slapping this goblin.
It was incredible.
Yeah. And Andy was basically dead because he got stabbed in both lungs.
So Adam and I kept... After a couple rounds of this, we started yelling because nobody else could see. So we started yelling back toward the other party about just, "Oh my God, we're fighting. There's so many goblins in here.
But we don't need any help. Don't worry about it.
Don't come in here. We're fine. You don't need to see anything."
And then
it's just really amazing, though.
Butterscotch, who had been just sitting on top of an overturned carriage, crossbowing people in the face, would be like, "You guys need some help over there." And then Adam says, "Be like, no, we're good.
We're good. You just stay over there. Keep looking the other direction. There's plenty of action over there."
And so they finally bring this poor confused goblin into camp. So they capture him, bring him in, and we're interrogating him. And Butterscotch is a soft soul. So at the end of the day, recognizes this guy just lost all of his friends, and apparently like 30 of them in the woods.
Yeah, it was a massacre.
It was a massacre. And so so says, "I know you lost a lot of your buddies in there, but we need your help with some stuff that we're doing." And the guy's like, I don't know what you're talking about. It was just me in the bushes. and then Adam and Seth are like, "What? No, there's like 30 goblins in there."
He didn't see anything. He didn't know what he was talking about.
And then Butterscotch steps in. He's like, "Look, I know you've been traumatized. Your memories are fading."
So we're trying to maintain the illusion that Adam and I, our characters have a bond now because we went through slap fight hell.
There was a lot of laughter.
Yeah, if you haven't played D&D before, do it.
I think, but there is a problem with D&D, which is that
you gotta have a good dungeon master.
You have to have a good dungeon master, but you also just have to put in an enormous amount of upfront work to go play. And if you've never done it before, everything about it is completely mysterious. So I mean, I used an online tool to roll my character because I didn't know any of the numbers meant. I had no context yet.
There's too many rules.
There's way too many rules.
Yeah.
And we didn't even use most of them. And there were actually,
they've got rules.
Used probably the right number, I think.
They've got rules about like how fast your character can march versus jog versus walk. So it's like, okay, if you have a dungeon master who's a real stickler for the rules, they'd be like, "Okay, you are 6.3 miles from the nearest settlement. What do you do?" And you're like, "Well, we should try to establish what kind of a marching pace we're supposed to get." It's just like, no.
So we don't get too hungry because we have to forage for food.
I think the most interesting thing about it is that combat just takes a long time.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that the combat session ended up being probably
Like 2
an hour
hours.
to an hour and a half of what we were actually doing.
Well, there were a
Like
total
some
of
big
8
threes.
goblins.
There were
There were a
8
lot of
goblins and 6 people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's like the amount of overhead per combat moment is actually really high.
Yep.
And Sure was doing a great job as far as running it efficiently and stuff. So,
But he sure was also excellently embellishing the.
oh yeah,
So anytime somebody would, roll a really crappy roll or something, he wouldn't just be like, you missed. He would, tell some short little ditty about like how you grabbed your sword from the wrong end and like hit him on the face with the handle or something. So
yeah, it was good.
It's
But
good.
yeah, but there are other RPGs, other tabletop RPGs that are less elaborate in all the upfront cost of playing. I haven't played any of those either. I just know that they exist. So if this kind of thing sounds cool to you, but you're like, where the fuck? I need to buy like 8 books and then do infinite research online and then use a machine to statistically roll my character.
It's
You
kind
could
of
just
a
be like,
lot.
I'm not going to do all of that. Let me just go do some research trying to find just an easier startup thing.
This is why video game RPGs sort of surpassed
Yeah.
pen and paper ones because that's a lot of
It
math.
takes care of all that stuff for you.
I was just using it as an opportunity to crack a lot of jokes, basically. So that's essentially what I think most of us ended up using the whole story scene as. Is just anytime you could possibly do something just a little weird, then someone would be like, I'm gonna
one
punch
and
him in the knees.
I specifically rolled a gnome because of the fact that the racial background of the gnomes is that they don't take anything seriously. And they just turn everything into a joke.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'm going to own this. So I was cracking jokes as every opportunity possible. So it was a good time. Speaking of Dungeons and Dragons, World of Warcraft is which is it's a clone of Dungeons and Dragons as well.
Really.
Mm-hmm.
It's letting players now convert their WoW gold into Battle.net credit, which players can use in other Blizzard games.
Can they use it to buy Blizzard games?
Maybe.
Yes, I think didn't they say it was?
I don't know. I don't know what
just
the
short of
extent of
that.
it is. I'm pretty confident that you can use it for in-app purchase type of things. So basically Hearthstone packs and getting equipment crates or whatever in Overwatch. I don't know if it spills into StarCraft and I don't know if it spills into Diablo. But
Really interesting, right?
yeah.
So what's going on here? I guess
Okay.
why in the hell would they make it such that you can convert in-game currency in World of Warcraft into?
Is there a good
So I
sink
think-
for currency in World of Warcraft, or do you just tend to?
that's the problem.
Well, no.
High
So
on
so
that.
World of Warcraft in the last expansion, they introduced just an astronomical number of gold sources.
It's like passive, but a lot of them are passive. Almost,
Yeah, they were all
right?
passive. You didn't have to do anything. You just kind of like log in once a day
Oh,
and
right,
just,
'cause
and
they
just
added
get
that. Yeah.
and just get like 5,000 gold. And so the amount of inflation was just through the roof.
Right, because there was
Yeah,
just more gold.
and
than
they
you
they
need.
introduced the concept of the WoW token, where a player can spend $20 and get this thing called a WoW token. A player could spend gold. Okay, yeah, you could buy a WoW token for $20. You can sell that WoW token on the auction house in exchange for gold, and somebody can redeem the token for game time. So if I'm a player and I'm like, I don't want to spend real money on this game, but I have 50,000 gold, I can buy a WoW token from somebody else and I can redeem the WoW token to extend my subscription. Right. So they already have this kind of game time for actual
But
goods.
it's not but that money is not being destroyed though. It's just being moved.
It's
between
being moved
players.
around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is
Because you need to
no-
actually destroy it.
Yeah,
so
they have
that-
no destroy
to get rid
system.
of inflation.
Yeah. So presumably this is I think it's actually a genius move because of the fact that the inflation is just ludicrous in WoW. And it becomes a big problem when it comes to things like items that are purchased from vendors and stuff like that, because NPCs, their prices don't respond to inflation in the general market.
Right.
The only thing that responds to inflation is player exchanged.
Right.
items.
So NPC items become really cheap.
Yeah, so all of a sudden, anything you get, you can just have it.
Yeah, but I found this even just playing like Diablo.
Yeah.
Diablo 3. Money became meaningless like the moment I started playing that game. It never meant anything. You just go, because the good stuff that you can buy, or you can't buy better stuff than you can find.
Yep.
So you don't need it anyway. And then
Which
you
is
need
probably the way
so
it should
little of
be.
it to like repair your stuff versus how much that you get. Because again, like those aren't really tied together, but the amount you get keeps on going up. So that's that enormous inflation.
Yeah, so I think it definitely serves to deflate the gold in World of Warcraft. But I think a bigger question is what's the broader implication of this system?
Mhm.
And I don't exactly know.
It's a
I
hard
think
one to wrap your
I
head
think
around.
you know from a player perspective, obviously it keeps people more entrenched in the Blizzard suite of games, right? So like if I can play one game and I can earn, credit, then I can also start redeeming items in another game.
Right. I think the downside though is that it naturally converts all of the stuff that you do in World of Warcraft a little bit into work because of the fact that, I mean, think about it. You're essentially being paid from your playtime in that game
To
in a
get an
way that
Overwatch
allows
crate.
you to buy stuff in other games. So in other words, so that we've talked about this danger before about setting up incentives such that things that previously you would just do become
fun.
work,
Yeah.
right? Or become stripped out such that you could say, well, I need to go play World of Warcraft because I got to go log into my garrison to get my 5,000 gold today so I can buy this crate in Overwatch.
Mm-hmm.
That's weird. That's like real weird,
Yep.
Really
It is weird. And actually it's a feeling that a lot of WoW players were expressing. So I was playing around the start of this most recent expansion, and a lot of WoW players were expressing that exact feeling because of the fact that they introduced a new system where, it used to be you'd have all these different pieces of equipment. So if you wanted to improve your character, you'd be like, oh, like I'll get a shoulder. There's a particular boss that drops these shoulder pads. I'm going to go like fight that boss and try to get him. And there's enough randomness in there, and there's enough interesting things happening that, it's a fun goal to go and do. And there's a little bit of a challenge to it and stuff like that. But then they switched it over so that everybody has the same weapon, and everything you do in the game gives you artifact power, which charges up the power of your weapon, which means that everywhere you go, you're just kind of getting this little like drip feed of little paychecks, that kind of boost the power of your weapon over time. And the biggest complaint that was coming from people, at least back when I was playing, was that all of a sudden, stuff that used to be interesting and fun and have all this sort of intrigue to it, now just like everything turns into a just like this grind to make your stuff better.
Right?
Yeah.
It's just all the same.
Yeah. And so it's an interesting problem. World of Warcraft is I think, at least in my opinion, I think Sam probably agrees as well. And I know Adam hasn't spent too much time with it, but
No, very little.
it's a game that had a ton of stuff going for it. And I think it's starting to suffer from sort of over design, where the devs are trying to cram a lot more systems in there. They're trying to streamline things and make things far simpler. And it's just kind of reaching a point where everybody's being funneled into the same sort of like grind fest, which is not cool.
Well, it's an interesting consequence, even of just having a marketplace where players can go sell their stuff. Because if you go back to that idea where if you go kill a boss that drops specific kind of loot, right? And now I, as a player, don't actually even have to do that to get that same thing, because I can just buy it from somebody else. Because this is the same problem that we have like with Quadrup's Rampage, where you can just buy an in-app purchase that gives you all the stuff that you don't have to now go out and earn.
So what you're buying is
You're
less game.
Yeah, you're basically, it's cheating effectively, right? In the sense that you've cheated yourself. You've just taken away some of that awesome stuff you got to go experience. Because the point isn't actually the reward. The point is the experience leading up to it, and that's a little cherry on top.
Yeah. So I'm a big fan of, and actually the WoW token system was modeled after EVE Online's Plex system. Yep. And the interesting thing with the EVE system is, everything you own in that game can be taken from you by somebody else.
They have a beautiful sync because everything can be destroyed.
Things get destroyed, things get taken. And so you'll see people come in and like, oh yeah, and they'll see somebody flying a really big fancy ship. And they're like, oh, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna be the person flying that huge ship. And they'll drop, a few $100 on this sort of token thing that they can sell in game and like get a few billion in-game currency and then buy this big ship, but they don't know how to use it, right? And they'll just wander off to some dangerous region of space. And like in the first 30 minutes of having this ship, just a bunch of people are like, hey, that's a big fancy ship.
It'd be a shame if something happened to you.
Yeah. And so people just pile onto it because like the bigger and sort of blingier your ship is, the more of a sort of challenge it is for other players to try to take you down. So it's a self-balancing system, which works well. And in a more sort of PvE focused game like WoW, you just don't have that.
Well, and it prevents the rampant inflation. I mean, even the fact that there are wars that break out that
Just
literally just
trillions
destroy,
of destroyed.
They just destroyed enormous fractions of monetary value from the system, so that and these things get funded by the wealthiest people in the system. So like it even evens out kind of the wealth gap.
distribution.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. There's a lot going on. So I think it'll be interesting to see, just where this goes, what the player response is to it. So we'll keep an eye. We'll check back in maybe like a month and kind of see what that's looking like.
Yeah.
And the last news item before we get to questions is, and I'm not sure what this means. So I think Sam, you may have to fill this in.
What did I do?
I don't know.
Milwaukee County requiring parks permits for Pokemon.
Yeah. So okay,
What does this
Pokemon Go.
mean?
So Pokemon Go, came out a while ago.
Yeah.
And it had this weird thing we talked about a little bit as far as it was the first sort of large establishment of a game layer on the actual world, where there are so many people participating in it that Pokemon Go actually could affect, like for example, if a bar or a business bought lures and stuff, this game could actually affect the economy a little bit, or local economies.
I remember people around the time it came out, people listed up houses for sale, and they would list in the real estate listing that it was close to like 2 Pokemon gyms.
Yeah.
And,
Exactly. So there's an interesting thing happening where, and some people have written about this, I believe, in Kama Sutra, about how once you have this game layer established, there's going to be some rocky problems with it because of the fact that it does influence the real world, because these are people running around in the real world.
yeah.
So
it
what
influences
happened?
the movement of people.
Yeah. So what happened was for this parks legislation that just got passed. Essentially, there was a particular park that had just a shitload of Pokemon stops, and of course, Niantic, the company that made Pokemon Go, just put these there based on one of the previous games from Ingress. So they had all these stops there, and it increased the traffic in the park so much, and at such odd hours of the day too, that the amount of there's just a huge amount of litter that started showing up. People were there all the time, like breaking shit or trotting over grass. In other words, it actually caused a lot of damage.
Property damage.
And it's of course, parks are funded by taxpayers. And so the point they made was that the taxpayers had to shell out. It's like, I don't think it wasn't like a huge amount of money, but it's an extra like $1,000 or a couple $1,000 across a whole neighborhood to essentially keep the park clean. Just because of how many people were running around in it. And so they said,
But that is, I mean,
it is the point.
those people there are the taxpayers paying for it.
Maybe.
To an extent,
people are
unless they're
coming in from
out of-
other neighborhoods or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
It depends on how local the tax
Yeah.
is. I
Well, yeah.
suppose.
So the whole point they made was like they apparently had tried to, I don't know if they tried to legally get Niantic to like give them money or something, of course, with the lawsuit last
This is
summer.
why we can't have nice things, guys.
Yeah. Or, but basically what happens is so they then just pass this thing where they're like, if you want to put your Pokemon stops in our parks because it ends up causing real world consequences for us, you have to buy a park permit.
Well,
Like, you have
it's
to get a
kind of
permit
like
to do it.
it's like you're hosting an event.
It is, yeah.
Just
a constant,
just a permanent
event.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you have to get a permit to hold a concert in a park or whatever, because of the influx of people and the extra maintenance comes with that, it weirdly does stand to reason that if you develop an app that causes, an extra 50,000 people to come to a park in a few months, maybe. I mean,
No, this is bullshit.
maybe.
The purpose of a park, the reason parks exist is so that people
Can
go to them, right? And they're sustained by the local group. And I don't believe for a fucking second that like there are tens of thousands of people coming from outside the city limits into some random ass
Yeah,
fucking park.
But it's the case that, the parks are developed with a particular threshold of usage.
Oh, sure.
in
Yeah,
mind.
and also with a goal. And this is the one piece I find interesting about this whole thing, because the goal of a park is not to support Pokemon Go, right? It's not a Pokemon Go playground. It's a park. And so it's kind of this question of usage, right? If you're using a park,
Okay, what would you say the goal of a park is?
just like general recreational hanging out
And
activities,
you
right?
would exclude
Yeah, I think
Going on a Pokemon
unfortunately,
run from
It's a
that?
hard thing. I'm just saying it's a weird. You're getting into a weird space.
I don't think it's even weird. I think it's just if you make a public space that the goal of it is to get people outside, which
Is
to
this
me
not?
the
But
goal
is
of
this
park
not a
is.
tragedy of the comment situation? Though?
Well, it becomes one, but here's the thing: if your strategy for mitigating the problems that come as a consequence of the good thing that is because if people are coming for any reason at all, not even Pokemon Go, you'd still see more litter because litter is a function of the number of people that go to a thing, right?
Yes.
And if there are people that tend to not go to parks, which are exactly the kind of people that parks should be trying to get to go to parks, since that's their job, right? Then they don't know how to behave there. And so if you say, how do we solve this problem? I know, let's sue this company that's bringing people to our
It
park.
is a dumb
Instead of
response.
saying, hey, how do we teach people to just behave better, right? And
It's
so
interesting because it's certainly been casted by this particular area as a problem, rather
as a
than
nuisance,
opportunity,
right? Yeah.
Like, oh, all these people are using the park that we built for them to use.
Yeah.
How dare
Well,
they?
yeah, all
It's
these
interesting though, right? And then I think this is
because a whole economy can spring. Because the example we had before this was, like the impacts of companies putting out a lure to bring people into their bars and stuff, right? It's like this
Or
is
getting to
a
sell
park.
your house for an extra 10 grand because
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
next to
And
two
this is
Pokemon.
a park in a town that people now are going to more, right? There's more foot traffic, which means there are more economic opportunities. There's more opportunities for networking, more opportunities for various kinds of events that could stimulate something in the town that this thing is in. Unless you just say, nah,
man, suited.
Yeah, I think it's human nature to look at changes just as problems, right?
Yeah.
So like it's easy to just be like, oh fuck, now there's all this litter, instead of saying, oh look, there's all these people here. What can we do to make this even better now?
and then put up some funny, the problem is that these are the same fucking people who then put up a sign that in very angry terms tells you exactly what not to do, or we're going to fine you X number of dollars.
Make it an unwelcoming place.
Yeah, instead of making a place where they just make jokes about the fucking Pokestops that are there and make jokes about how nice it'd be if you clean your shit up.
A little cart, set up a little cart, sell the same things you would sell in a Pokemon game.
Yeah.
Just staff it with a teenager,
Yeah. Staff it with a teenager.
Boom.
Right.
Yeah.
'Cause what they should be doing is now selling permits for people to sell stuff in that park, right? Because then those permits feed into the park's financial resources anyway. So they basically, this thing is when you have all these people coming to use this resource where the commons are what pay for that resource, you can find additional ways to do that so that you can easily offset what is undoubtedly a very minor additional cost to this park by just recognizing that you can and fucking doing it. And then instead you could look at this as an opportunity to get to hire some more people.
Yeah.
So you could be like, oh, now it's more expensive to run this place, but we also have more money to run it.
Problem
So
solved.
The problem is solved, and then we got to hire people as a consequence and make other people's lives better.
Yeah. So this is pretty new.
Or you can try to
this
sue
is
Niantic.
pretty new development. Right?
Yeah, I just read it today.
Yeah, so we'll see. Just like the WoW thing, we'll see where this goes. But yeah, so let's get on to some questions. And those questions come from podcast.bscotch.net. If you want to get your question on the podcast, you can come and ask with your Bscotch ID, or you can ask anonymously. And we prefer for you to have a Bscotch ID.
Well, yeah.
But I guess we'll accept anonymous questions.
Although I don't think we've answered any for a really long time.
Yeah.
Not for quite a while. All right, so first question comes from Kevin888, who, by the way, Kevin888 built a Flux Dabes action figure and mailed it to us.
Yeah,
Awesome.
pretty fucking
Sitting
sweet.
on my desk.
It was amazing.
It's the only thing on my desk besides my equipment.
Yeah. Kevin888 says, if given the chance and resources to make a licensed game, would you do it? Are there any IPs you'd be interested in or have ideas for?
No.
Nah.
The thing is,
No.
once you license somebody else's IP, you are now governed by whatever rules that go along with that
Now you have a
license.
client.
You have a client, and having a client means you don't get to do what is
Whatever you want.
best for your company or what is best for your players or just what you want.
There's a ton of business overhead too, of just sort of, it would no longer be the case. So for the current game we're working on, let's say we go, oh, it'd be cool if we developed a new type of character you can play as. So we brainstorm on it for 20 minutes. We throw some art together, and within a few hours, we have a character that we can now animate and put in the game. Boom, we're done. Right? If we were licensing, say, like a Marvel game or something, there's no chance
Yeah,
that
everything
we
has to
could
fit in
come
that
up with a
universe.
character. We would only be able to use characters that they have, and also like you would license individual characters. And this is a joke in the Deadpool movie where there's these two X-Men that keep showing up all over the place in Deadpool,
Right.
and
Then they're like sub.
they're like
quality.
way low tier characters that never appear in pretty much anything. And Deadpool cracks some joke about how the studio couldn't get enough funding to get any more than the two crappiest X-Men. Right? But that's the way it works. And this is actually why, for example, the Spider-Man movies have done generally pretty badly. And now finally Spider-Man is sort of being rolled back into the Marvel universe. It's because of licensing problems, right? Where like Spider-Man as a character alone was licensed off to some other studio and was not then part of the normal Marvel Cinematic Universe until now. And so once you get into these licensed IP territories, then things get really sticky and there's a lot of negotiations and a lot of politics.
The point is just to be able to make stuff, which is our goal, is just to make a lot of stuff. Then it doesn't actually make any sense for us to do licensing because it adds a tremendous amount of general business fuckery to what we're trying to do.
And it's at that point, it's purely a financial mechanism, right? As in, oh no, we have no money. We need to reach out to some other company and have them pay us to make it. Like we can make games, but we don't know if people will pay us for our games. We know people will pay for a Star Wars game, right? So we'll talk to Disney. They'll license us a Star Wars IP, a very specific proportion of it, you know, and then we'll make the game.
Well, the other thing with these license agreements too is that they have to have many mechanisms by which your work can just be destroyed, right? Because if you were to manage to somehow get a Star Wars license from Disney, right, to work on a game or something, that without a doubt is going to include some terms where they can say, if we decide we don't like what you made, it never sees the light of day, right? You'll still probably get paid for it to at least most of what you put into it for development. But then maybe not, depends on the agreement, right? But in any event, you get to now spend years of your life making a thing in like a universe you love, following the set of strict rules that keep on being dictated from above, fighting battle after battle to get the game to be what you want, only to turn around and they're like, nah.
Well, actually, some large production companies with their, you know, big portfolios of different IPs and characters and stuff, what they'll do when they want a game made is they will hire out, say, like 5 different small game studios, and they'll say, we want you to make a game about this. And
those studios don't know that the other studios.
Those studios don't know the other studios are there, and they'll give them the same specs, the same contract, the same requirements, and they basically just do sort of like a reality show style, like, you know, pack your knives, you're going home situation, where they'll have these milestones that, you know, 3 months, 6 months, whatever, and whichever studio is performing the worst just gets axed. You know, their contract gets canceled. And by the time it's done, they'll have a finished game that, you know, that works well, and nobody else's game sees the light of day.
It's one of those things that from the outside as a fan, it sounds awesome in your head to think, oh, I love, say, like Zelda, right?
Yeah.
In that series, and be like, it would be so cool if someday I could contribute to that universe, that set of things that I love, right? But the reality of doing that is nothing like what that sounds like it would be.
It's not just like
you're not designing it. You're not, you know,
well, it's not like doing fan art, right? Where you're just like, you get to go and have a good time with the characters and enjoy.
And literally do whatever you want, because
it's gonna be a lot of rules.
It's unlikely that somebody will come after you, right? Yeah. And actually, a lot of people don't know this. We talk about this a lot in the studio too. But like even things like most fan art is technically an infringement of some sort or another,
of a trademark,
trademark typically. But companies know, like, they don't want to go after their fans, right? So they tend not to, but sometimes they still do.
And it's not. I mean, it's not hurting anybody if somebody like knits a Zelda sweater and sells it on Etsy or something, right? You know.
But if you start selling it on your mega website and start selling it to tens of thousands of people,
if you are opening up a sweatshirt warehouse. Then you're going to need to pay some licensing fees.
But yeah, I mean, it's the kind of the world that everybody, like true fans of things, live in is the one where they cannot know about any of the details of the brutal legal reality of this stuff, and then have a blast sort of in putting their own vision into the thing that they're a fan of. But once you get to the level where somebody would consider licensing a thing to you, like once you're operating at that level where something that you think is awesome also thinks you're awesome enough to do that, the rules are very, very different.
Lawyer up.
Strongly enforced.
Yeah.
I don't think I love anything enough to deal with that.
I absolutely do not.
There's no fandom I'm a part of.
Yeah, no. Just make our own stuff. Yeah. All right. So next question comes from Degeki, and this one's good. This one's okay. I'm just gonna go. All right. Degeki says, personal practice question. I don't know what that means, but that's what he said. Regarding world/country/local news, how do you balance keeping informed with news fatigue?
Interesting.
So we've actually, I mean, this has been a thing.
Probably for everybody.
Basically since just before November 8th, I guess. Where it seems like there's a lot of things happening that are really big and important. And it's really easy to feel like you have to constantly be seeing what people are tweeting about it, read all the YouTube comments, go to various subreddits, and read what people are saying about
think
things.
Think about this kind of like what you're talking about with the artifact power problem with World of Warcraft. You don't want to be drip fed anything. There are very few things aside from like morphine if you're in the hospital. There are very few things in life that are better to be drip fed than it is to just get them in a bundle.
Yeah, like you don't want to be drip fed M&Ms. You just want to grab a handful and just cram that right into your gullet.
More importantly,
yeah. So news, I think, and controlling news is the same in my opinion as controlling your exposure to like Twitter or Reddit, or whatever else. It's all the same shit at the end of the day because the reality is
people talking about stuff.
And I think the really important consideration is that it's always negative because news is of a negative quality. It's going to be of a negative quality.
Anger is an easily shared emotion.
Yeah. Well, more importantly, I think it's human nature to look at whatever bad is happening first because that's what's important for you to be aware of. If everything's going great, most people don't take stock of their lives when everything's going great.
Nobody goes on the internet like, hey, just want to let everybody know things are fine today.
Doesn't happen.
Woke up, I just had some breakfast. It's good.
I wonder if that person does. Everybody thinks that guy's a dick.
Yeah.
Quit bragging. Nobody cares about your amazing life, Steve.
So I think it's important to note that news is going to skew negative. Twitter also going to skew negative. Reddit, literally everything is going to skew negative. And with that in mind, that it's going to be not a good time for you to have to go to these things. And then also keep in mind that a drip feed mechanism to get these things. So if that means you're literally on Twitter all the time, which some people are, or Reddit, or if you're skimming the New York Times every 2 hours or something, it's literally just going to fuck up your day. And news happens quickly, and especially with this administration, it appears to be happening very quickly. But keeping track of what an idiot says on Twitter is not a really good use of your time because the reality is the fallout from any one of those things is something that you can hear about tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. I mean, for me, the question is it's about asynchronous information, right?
Correct.
And so I want to add on to the negative part, which what I think is actually even more important, which is that news today is information poor, right?
It's emotion rich.
It's emotion rich, but it's not even emotion rich necessarily. Like if you're reading it on Twitter, yeah, absolutely.
Well,
but if you're reading on like CNN and that kind of stuff, right?
You're saying so in other words, because the fact is that they'll say like breaking, this thing just happened.
Right. And they'll give you the only tiny thing that they know and then speculate for like 10 paragraphs, right? And then every hour, like on the hour, they update and add some new speculation and maybe some additional actual information, but that information is coming secondhand, thirdhand, whatever, And so when a news story breaks, then it takes a solid like day to weeks for the actual true series of events and what matters about that to be sort of solidified into something that is just summarized.
And for the dust cloud of rage or grief or whatever it is
to get to the other side of it.
For the facts to emerge from the
right. So if you care about what's happening in the world, then you have basically two options. One is if you intend to act on every single piece of potentially useful information about something you think is important, right? And then you got to keep your pulse on it, right? I'm not really sure what person there could be for whom that would be useful to do.
If it's your job, basically.
I mean, if it's your job, although if that's your job, you tend to be the person creating the problem in the first place.
Right.
And by acting on it, it could mean, you need to respond in some way because of a legal complication or whatever. But the fact is most of the things that happen to us, that impact us, do so slowly over time. Even things that seem like they're immediate and enormously threatening, such as many of the decisions that the current administration is making. They realistically, even if they do end up being really bad, it's still going to take more than a day, right, for this shit to actually hit you in a way that you need to act on.
Yeah.
So my approach is just, if I can't act on it and it doesn't contain useful information, don't fucking pay attention.
Then it's not news and it's not information. It's nothing.
Yeah, wait until you can get a summarized report of like the whole fucking thing.
Yeah, and this brings up an interesting role, I think, for actual newspapers that are printed, which is that they're not going to be the updated bits and pieces. Because they come out slower. So
they have time to think about things.
Yeah. So I think the point is that you don't, being updated on a daily basis is, in my opinion, like if you get like USA Today or New York Times or something like that.
Well, find some trustworthy source of information whose goal isn't to have as much information as possible.
Yeah, and then just in limiting your exposure to it in a way that feels good and makes sense. Which I don't know if anybody listening to this actually reads a physical newspaper, but it's actually pretty enjoyable to sit down and read a newspaper. It's not like reading shit on the internet.
And there's no comment section.
There's no comment
thankfully.
section, and then you can finish it. You can read it.
You can read the entire news.
Then close it and throw it in the trash and move on.
I got the news. I'm done now.
So I think that's the thing is that this idea of staying informed while also not losing your mind. This is a new problem.
Yeah, well, and
the reason
remember
is
that
because-
reading stuff that people are saying is not equivalent to staying informed.
Yes, and that's exactly what the distinction I'd like to make, which is that you can stay informed by reading the news once per day or once per couple of days, and that's just a fact.
Or once a week.
You don't need the daily informed bits.
Yeah, you're not, and I think importantly, you're not becoming fatigued just because of how much news you're consuming. What you're fatigued by is just how much stuff you're consuming, right?
How much garbage you're waiting
Yeah,
for.
like there's only so much news.
Right.
And what you're getting bogged down by is the other crap that comes along with internet news, comment sections, subreddits, Twitter, angry aunts and uncles on Facebook retweeting some weird piece of
Conspiracy.
This is what I mean. This is why I absolutely prefer to get my news with a time delay via podcasts from trustworthy sources that just like dig into something interesting that are relatively current. That way I can just kind of know about stuff that's been happening, right? And for more up to the moment news, I just like to watch super time limited like daily TV shows like The Daily Show, right?
Because they will tell you what's happening. They'll make a bunch of dumb
happening.
jokes about it.
Right. But they're going to summarize basically kind of the important stuff. And they've already done the work of weeding out all the bullshit noise for you. Right. So that they can just give you the salient points.
And it is the case that just think about what something you said earlier, Adam, about most things taking some time before they affect you. There are certain things that already have happened, like the travel ban, for example, that do not take any time to affect people. But the thing is that if you have a social circle at all of more than like 4 people,
you'll hear about it.
You will hear about it pretty much immediately. Yeah. And there's in other words, you can stay informed actively and passively in 2 different ways. And having a good network of friends who have diverse backgrounds and stuff will keep you informed of the things that are actively happening that you might be able to go, get involved in protests and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So
be, just like we talked about last week, be deliberate. Don't passively just get spritzed in the face with news crap.
You can avoid absolutely any news resource whose job it is to provide quote unquote news at every moment of every
just
day.
Constantly. Yeah. That's
get a newspaper.
It's a bunch of nonsense.
Yeah.
All right. So next question comes from BabooTube.
Hey, that's good.
BabooTube says Butterscotch Shenanigans is a full-on actual business.
This is a fact.
So why don't you sell stock on the stock market? If you do, tell us about it.
Well, I guess Seth could probably best get to the detail, but I guess this comes to some confusion that by just being a business, you're like part of that public ecosystem.
So in order to sell stock directly on the stock market, there's a lot to it, but I think so there's 2 points here. One is, why does a company sell stocks?
To get money.
Greed.
Yes. To just have money.
I would say it's for greed per se.
And actually,
for capital, for sure.
Yeah. But what's the difference?
It's to gain capital in the form of, so if you're a company, you have 3 ways to make money. One is to actually do the thing that your company is for, right? So if you're like, we make video games, then you make some video games and then you sell them and you get some money, right? So that's one way to get money. Another way is to take on some liabilities. In other words, get some loans.
Get some debt.
Go to the bank, say, hey, we need some more money to make this game.
Yeah.
And then have them say no, and then go somewhere else and try until you find somebody.
So this makes sense if you are the type of company where you have fairly predictable things in your future, and you're like, okay, if we built this new factory based on market conditions, blah blah blah, we think that we could make an extra 30% income next year. And so if we take out this loan now at a certain interest rate, then it's a good do the math, and you're like, based on the factors we know, it's a good investment. So you get the money now, you build your thing, you pay the loan back, and you're good. Right. So that's That's way number 2 to get money. Way number 3 is to get money in the form of equity, which is where you sell stocks. So you sort of like carve up the soul of your company, right? Into little pieces, and you just start handing them out for cash. And the weird thing is that what you see for stock prices, like let's say you look at a share of Google stock, and a share of Google stock, I don't know how much it's worth now, maybe like $1,000 or $1,500 or something.
Worth a bunch.
Those shares, Google did not get $1,500 for each of those shares. What they got was probably more like $500 or $400. Because
their IPO.
Yeah. So whenever a company does a sale of stock, then whatever is their share price at the time, that's what the company can do. So if Google sells 1 million shares now, then they would get whatever, $1.5 billion, right? Mm-hmm. So now they just have this big influx of cash, but they also have a new thing, which is shareholders. So what you're going to have with shareholders is now all of a sudden you are no longer in charge of your company. Because
not fully anyway.
Yeah, because what those stocks are not just pieces of paper; those are pieces of your company that other people get to have and own. And if somebody owns, say, 20% of your company, then they probably will have a seat at the board of directors, and they can, for example, fire you. If they don't think that you're doing a good enough job of making them money.
Yeah, because remember, that is your job for shareholders.
Yeah. So once your company goes public, your function as a company is not. It's like if you started as a game development studio, once you go public, you're no longer a game development studio. You're an investment, right? And so all the people who bought shares, they don't care. They don't give a fuck how many video games you made. They don't know anything about the games you're making, whatever. You're part of their investment portfolio. And your company now exists to provide quarterly returns.
Yep.
That's why you exist now. And so all of your decisions will now be run through that filter of maximizing shareholder value.
Your shareholders can turn around and sue you if they think that you're not acting in their best financial interest to make as much money for them.
Yes, because you now have a fiduciary responsibility to be a good investment for the people who put their money in.
So if you can't tell, we don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And in large part because again, it shifts the focus. So our goal right now is to make games, and our goal also is to create a really cool and fun work culture and workplace.
Which means we have to take some risks.
We have to take risks, and we have to do a lot of things that don't necessarily make any sense on either a short term or on a short term or shorter term basis when it comes to finances. So quarterly reports as a general thing mean that ideally you're showing growth quarter by quarter. Some things, frankly, take years, months to figure out how to do and to execute it effectively, and then to see the results of. And you see
and as a game studio, all of our money comes from the product release, right? So
which may take a year or two to build.
And then we see all its profits within one quarter, and then it's guaranteed that our profits go back down again, right? So it's a weird business to try to sell to people anyway.
And we don't have. We've said it before on the podcast, I think, but the primary goal of this studio is not to make shitloads of money.
If it does happen, it's cool.
That's cool,
but that's not
what we're optimizing for. And we've talked about this before. Like, we're not making free to play games. It's just with the level of skill that all of us have in terms of making games and statistical knowledge and thinking about stuff. I would frankly just say that it's not the case that we couldn't successfully pull off making a free to play title if we wanted to. It's very difficult, but I think at least a middlingly successful one, which would probably be way more monetarily rewarding than something like a premium game that's an RPG. It's not the case that we wouldn't be able to work toward having a successful free to play title. But that's not what we're interested in. But if we were only here for the cash monies, we would probably have to be somewhat interested in it, or interested in just a lot of other aspects of the business side of things that we don't necessarily care about. And that's the important thing, is that if you go public, whatever it is that your vision is for the company, if it's not along monetary lines, well, too bad.
Specifically short-term monetary lines. You gotta sacrifice all kinds of things. And also, honestly, you hear about a huge company, maybe it has like 10,000 people, and they're like, oh yeah, we need to lay off 2,000 people, right? Why are they doing that?
Why does it always happen at the end of the
they're doing that because you have to pay people. And one of the ways, like let's say as a company, you've done a lot of work, you have your 10,000 people, you've established a lot of, supply chains, and you've got your factories are working, whatever, and you look at the numbers and you're just like, well, everything is running smoothly. And we think if we kind of knocked down our crew, you know, to more of like a skeleton crew in our various factories or whatever, we could still probably make the same number of widgets and sell them, but we just wouldn't have to pay as many people. And yeah, I mean, sure, we'll overwork the remaining people basically to the bone, but think about
it is a skeleton crew.
But think about exactly. But think about the shareholders. We're going to make a lot of shareholder value because now all of a sudden we're making so much more profit because we're not spending as much money on people. So that's why layoffs happen. That's why you see entire offices get shut down and sent off, you know, sent to other countries. Not because they think, oh yeah, this is going to be super good for our company. They think it's going to be good for our shareholders because now we're just paying people less for the same work.
Or because you're the longest, or you run into an economic situation because of like global depression or something like that, right? Where now you're guaranteed that for a while, your profits have to go down. One thing you can do is if that starts dipping below even your revenue so that now all of a sudden you can't even break even, then that can become a serious problem and you do have to fire people. Right?
Yep.
But if all it's doing is eating into your profit, then you have two decisions there. One is you can say, well, we're in a depression.
There's never enough profit, right? For a publicly traded company.
Yeah, there's never enough.
There's never enough.
So then you have to decide, okay, well, do we try to ride this out, watch our profits dwindle, but keep everybody on board, keep the company moving, maybe try to move it into some other paths that are more stable, whatever. Or do we just start firing people to make it so that our profit margin doesn't drop as fast or even goes back up? And so now that's the decision you have to make. So instead of trying to ride out a storm, which is then what we would do, like if we had economic hard times, we'd be like, all right, how do we keep everybody on board even if we basically make literally no money, right, for the foreseeable future? And then we would prefer to take that path than the one where we just say, all right, fuck it.
Everybody's fired.
Everybody's fired.
Yeah. Yeah.
To know.
It changes your priorities, and we like our priorities.
Yeah. They're good. They're pretty good.
All right. Well, thanks for the question. It was a good one. And this has been a Coffee with Butterscotch. And like I said earlier, if you want to get your questions answered on the podcast, just head over to podcast.bscotch.net and ask with your Bscotch ID or anonymously. And that's all we got for you. We'll see you next week.
Bye. Goodbye.
Bye.